was still a lot to have essentially 2 jobs, to be getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, to have a toddler at home. I didn't take time for myself in any of that. And after 8 months at the end of it, I was really drained, and there was a baby on the way. And I was like, how am I going to manage it? But if I reflect back now, I still looked at that maternity leave and time with my daughter, who, look, I relish that time. And second baby, you're a lot less freaked out. You're like, I've got this. This is lovely. And I still did lots of the lovely things like meet friends for coffee and whatever else and enjoy my baby. But I was like, now, what else am I going to do with work? And how else am I going to use this time to get myself out there? And what other opportunities? So it was just this go, go, go mentality that I think maybe you do have until you reach midlife. Because at the midpoint, you kind of go, okay, well, am I going to keep climbing this mountain, or am I going to stop at some point and just enjoy the view?
So I've been trying to get this lady on my pod for some time. She very kindly gave me some of her time when I was working for the club a couple of years ago. And we've kind of kept in touch ever since. I love everything that she does. I've been on her radio show, which I love. She recently brought out a book, which I've read. I know, well, audio, as you know, I'm not a big reader. But she's just so lovely. And I really feel like we're kind of like kindred spirits. I know you're going to enjoy this one. It is the gorgeous Clare McKenna. Clare, welcome to Be Bell Podcast. I'm delighted to finally have you on.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I love your energy. I love being around you. So I'm thrilled. We're locked in a room together now for half an hour or so.
I was thinking about the first time that we met, which was down in Cork at the club Women in Business Award. And you very kindly came down and spoke to those ladies, I should say, in the room, and made an impact on those ladies. But we got to sit next to each other, which was super important. And I think I certainly felt that I'd met a kindred spirit. And I think we both sort of came away going, I must reconnect. And we have reconnected. You have very kindly interviewed me. Now I get to do you.
So, the tables have turned.
They have, and I love it. So I know an awful lot about you, but I don't know everything about you. And so we're going to go back a bit and really start from where it all began. So where did it begin?
I was actually born in London, would you believe?
Whereabouts?
Wimbledon. So
Okay.
my mum is English. She's from the Midlands in Leicester. And my dad was over working in London, and they met. So I lived there till I was 2, and then we moved over here. That was always the plan. And my mum has some family connections to Ireland, so she was quite happy to come here too. So I grew up in Howth in Dublin eventually, which is a gorgeous place by the sea. And that very much makes up who I am in many ways, because I've always loved the sea, the cliff walks, and everything that you kind of run from as a teenager, I've now returned to. So I'm raising my own family back there. My husband is from Howth as well.
Yeah.
And our families live around us. We can wave at people in the traffic as we walk by. I have chats in Super Value. All the things that made me eye roll as a teenager, I'm back embracing wholeheartedly.
Isn't it funny how we do that sort of that loop? And I grew up not far, I ended up in Wimbledon, actually. I lived in Wimbledon for a long time, Wimbledon Village. It's very posh people, Wimbledon, very posh. I used to tell everybody when I moved to D4, it's very posh where I come from. But I grew up in Richmond, so it's just down the road. But I kind of the same. I loved the fresh air. I love to be outside. Like sometimes I still, to this day, just sit outside in the garden and put the heater on just because I just need that. So as a kid, were you you obviously, lovely area to grow up in, lots of things close to you. But what were you like as a child? Were you sporty? Were you more academic?
Absolutely neither, really. I hated sport. I had an absolute aversion to it, to PE weekly. My dad was really into sport. And in fact, when he did things like go to London to work, he found joining the local squash club was his way into building a network and getting to know people. And obviously it was good for his physical and mental health alongside it. But I just did not concur with that at all. I tried them all, tennis, hockey, you name it. I had all the gear. I was dropped off. In fact, I often tell the story that I used to be dropped off to our local tennis club. My dad would be like, just get out there. Just walk up to a group and say, fancy a game and, put yourself out there. And I would wave him off, go over to Super Value, buy a big bag of Palm Bear crisps, eat them in the changing room, have a little wander around maybe, and then be picked up. And how did you get on? Great. So that was where I was at. Academically, like I did well. I'm lucky I didn't have any impediments to learning or any particular challenges, but I didn't really feel set alight by many things in the classroom.
And did you like school?
I did like it. I would have been kind of the class clown. I kind of flitted between groups, which I think has kind of become a skill of mine. You know, I didn't have any enemies. My best friends were more the people on the school bus on the way home that lived in my local area, and they're still my best friends to this day. But I loved English. I loved the debate team. They were the only things, and I loved drama. I loved doing speech and drama, doing all my exams. I played piano. So I always liked the arts, and they were the parts I gravitated to. But I didn't really feel like anyone in school really knew me. I felt we were kind of like numbers in kilts that just kind of flitted through it. And look, how can you know 800 students individually? So that was sort of me through school. I was a bit of a coaster. And
were you an only child, or did you have siblings?
No, so my parents would have had a lot of fertility issues. So they waited 5 years, had me.
Lovely.
Then another 5 years, had my sister, and then Irish twins, as we say. My brother arrived along by surprise. So there's quite a big age gap.
Okay.
That's closed as we've got older, obviously. But at the time, it was a bigger deal, I suppose.
Because you would be leaving secondary school, I suppose, as they're coming in, is it?
Yeah, I mean, 5 and 6 years between us.
Yeah.
So
there's 18 years between me and my sister.
Wow.
My older sister is 3 years older than me, so she's 57. And the youngest of us she's 18 years younger than me. And then there's 2 in between. So my mum, fertility issues as well. So there's gaps between all of us, 7 years, 5 years, and obviously 18 years, 20 years between the oldest and the youngest, same mum and dad. Yeah, it's mad.
It is mad. And I mean, obviously you're always woven together as a family.
Absolutely.
And it makes no difference. And you don't know any different. But I did feel that there were times where I was a teenager and I wanted to do teenage things, and there were still like, you know, bath, bedtime and cartoons going on. And that kind of created issues. I think it probably works well if you're all experiencing the same thing in and around the same time.
And did you feel at any time that flipped? So as you were all teenagers and you were going into adulthood, did you feel then that you had to, you know, as the oldest, did you take the lead as such?
I don't know if I did. My sister is actually an amazing person. She has always had a wise head on young shoulders her whole life. So she used to nearly lead me and advise me. And I remember her saying to me, I was probably about 15, 16, you know, falling for some guy. And she was like, Claire, like, don't go for the good looking ones. They don't know how to work for a girl. So they never treat her well. And I remember just being like floored by this genuine fact and how she would know that. So yeah, I think she schooled me. And still now I turn to her for advice all of the time. I don't know if I ever had this big authority role in my house, which is kind of funny now that you ask me. I never really thought of it.
Yeah, no, because I think, and we actually talk about this quite often on the pod, is I think everybody has an age. You know, I definitely, all my friends, so I'm 27. One of my sisters, we couldn't wait for her to turn 40 because she'd always been 40. Do you know what I mean? Like that old head on young shoulders. And she looks so comfortable in her 40s. I'm actually excited for her to hit her 50s because that's when it really, I think, begins. But only because I'm 50. I said that when I was 40. but yeah, I think everybody's kind of got an age where they kind of felt really comfortable at.
Yeah, she's just a brilliant advice person. So if anything, I'd nearly go to her, and she'd really call a spade a spade. You know, if she says something to you, she really means it. That's how you know if she says something good, she really means it, because she won't be afraid to call you out on bad behaviour. I remember another time, again, this is all like romance stuff. I'd broken up with this guy and we'd been together for years, and it had been on and off and on and off, you know, and it really wasn't working. And yet I was still kind of carrying this torch, as you do. And we'd gone for a drink this night and I came skipping back in thinking, well, maybe, and I don't know. And she was really annoyed with me, and she just looked me dead in the eyes and she was like, Claire, do you not think that we all went on this journey with you? And when you've been heartbroken and when you've been this, that and the other, that we weren't there for you. And here you are skipping along, you know, and like when you get one of those talking tos, you know to pay attention. So yeah, maybe she's the leader of the pack.
Sounds like a great sister.
She's awesome.
Absolutely. So at school, did you know what you wanted to do? Obviously, you had a graph for drama and the English, but did you know, like, because I think it's such a hard time, isn't it, to actually decide what you want to be?
I just wanted to be on stage.
Okay.
That was always where I felt happiest. That was always where I felt most excited. So I just sort of made a decision that I was going to do some sort of drama when I left school. And I was a bit of a take my foot off the gas person in school. I didn't try to the best of my abilities. And I don't know what was chicken and egg. I need to take personal responsibility, but that's what all of my reports said. Clare does not work to the best of her abilities. But I did find it very unmotivating. And I think now that I'm a parent of one teen and one almost teenager, to sort of say, these are 9 topics. These are all the books. It could be anything from any of those books. Now go study. I think that's really hard. When I went into college, I did 2 years of theatre studies, and then I ended up trying to get a bit of a safety net in place. So I did a marketing degree, and I found that a much better space to be, because they would say, right, this is the subject. There's going to be 6 questions. You need to answer 4. These are the 6 topics that are coming up in the exam. And I learned those 4 topics inside out and backwards. So there was a little bit of that going on. But I think because of that, I sort of decided in the run up to my leaving cert, I'm just going to do a PLC. I'm not going to worry about points.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get through it, and I'm going to go to this post-leaving cert certificate course in theatre studies, and that's going to be me.
And theatre studies is not easy. I did theatre studies for A-level.
Did you?
Yeah. And I hated it because I'm not a writer, you know, and I didn't want to learn all about the Russian playwrights. You know, it didn't. And actually, marketing excited me so much more because, again, I could be creative with that. Whereas I felt in theatre studies, I was analysing other people's work, and actually, it was my work I wanted to create.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I see as the differentiation. But yeah, theatre studies, photography, and dance. I did.
And
very
I used to
academic.
be so jealous of all of my UK cousins who could do that, who could choose 3 topics that they were passionate about rather than 7 to 9 that they could care less about. So yeah, I'd love to see an overhaul of the education system, but that is another topic for another day.
It is. And I think the big thing is it's, you know, we don't teach career flexibility, we teach career choice. And actually, I change career all the time. If something stops bringing me joy, I just move on. And we don't teach that that's okay. So I think that's the really important thing. So I sometimes speak actually at the uni down in Cork, and I went in the other day and I told them about all my different careers, and you could see they were like, oh my God, this is like not what you do. Do you know what I mean? But I think we need more of that they know that they can just change if they want to.
Yeah, and I think there is a move towards that, and people are a lot more multi-hyphenated than they've ever been before. And if you ask a young person what they want to be, you know, they might give you 4 or 5 answers rather than trying to find this one thing. And with that could come difficulty as well. I mean, people try something and go, no, not for me, on to the next, you know, in 6 months without really giving it a good go. So it comes with pros and it comes with cons. But I've been very much the same as you, and I've changed and I've pivoted. And I've taken something from everything that I have done. Like marketing, I was only talking with a friend of mine. We both worked in the same marketing company together, and we were away last week. And I was like, I still love a really good ad campaign.
Yeah.
Because I watched it go from brainstorming to fruition on billboards. I still look out for them, and I still see good taglines. So that is still something that I love, even though I don't necessarily want to work in it anymore.
Yeah. And so first job then, coming out of...
So I moved out of home while I was doing theatre studies because I was fiercely independent and, you know, was looking for that freedom. So that made me hit a crossroads of, I've done theatre studies, I want to be on stage, but is that going to pay my rent? And the answer ultimately was, unfortunately, no. And also a bit of reality and honesty. Did I really love it enough? Because all actors or true actors are willing to work for anything, for the craft. And some of them just happen to end up in Hollywood. I was just looking for a hop, skip, jump, perhaps to that. But look, I was to return to performance later, but I just didn't know it right then. So this friend that I mentioned, Jenny, she was working on reception in a marketing company. She'd been offered a job in the office and she said, do you want to take my job on reception? So I said, yeah. And it was a really cool agency that had really big Irish brands that I watched, you know, as I say, go from idea to fruition. It was a lovely front-facing job. Obviously, you're seeing everybody coming and going. Emails were only really starting. So even things like the courier company, you would have really brilliant working relationships with, know all the drivers, know all the girls on the phone.
Did you get my fax?
It's crazy, isn't it? And like Jenny was only saying to me last week, remember we used to have to go through the invoice and it was one of those, do you remember that printing thing that would print in a big like folded lines?
Oh, absolutely. Used to fold over and fold over.
And we'd have to go and tick off every job number and, you know, but I really did love that whole area. And I think at that age, you think everything's amazing, like having your own desk and going for lunch. And then when I eventually moved on to another company, which was an internet company, having my own email address, like this is all just so cool. You're so wide-eyed in the world and you're invested in everything and you're in the social club and you're going out on Fridays and you just think all of this is amazing. So yeah, I really enjoyed the working world and I got the degree in marketing at night.
Okay. I think that's the best way to do it though, working, you know, and you're working at the same time because that learned experience is so important, like so important. I went back to college a few years ago to do marketing again, just to make sure that I was doing all the right stuff. Did I learn anything? No, I just learned I was doing all the right stuff. Do you know what I mean? But it was good to go back. I enjoyed the experience because I always love learning.
I love learning. And I got that from my dad, you know, the idea that learning, never stop learning. He always imparted that to me. And I think whether it's like listening to an interesting podcast, reading a book, listening to an audiobook or doing a course, I'm all for it. But I think I've always gone to get a qualification in something because I think it gives you confidence. Like you said, it even rubber stamped what you were doing was right.
Yes.
And I always have done that. So you know, the marketing degree was as a fallback if the performance thing didn't work out. When I then got bored in marketing and decided, okay, I'm ready to perform again, but maybe I'll do radio and TV rather than acting, I did a postgrad in journalism because again, I wanted to say, I have a postgrad in journalism. I'd like to get into broadcasting. And I just think it just gives you an edge sometimes. And look, I was lucky. I had companies that were willing to pay for me to do these courses. I know sometimes education isn't accessible to all, and I was privileged in that. And my parents were supportive in that, even when I was living outside of home. So I did always have that. But more recently, learning to be a health coach, that was important to me to rubber stamp me speaking about my personal experience. I was never going to become a medical professional, but I wanted something to back up what I was saying. And I just think that gives you A, the confidence, and B, backs up, I'm onto something here. I think a bit of both. I do think it's an Irish thing as well. You love a cert in Ireland. Like everybody loves a certificate.
They do though. Like for years, people say, oh, you should get a cert in that, Sian. You should get, and I'm like, but I've been doing it for 22 years. I should get a cert though. So I'm like, okay, I'll go and get a cert. It's fine. But it is an Irish thing, the certificate thing. I love it, and I really do believe that you can't do anything unless you really understand it. Like you know, I ran a beauticians for 10 years, and I did my beautician qualifications, Tedesco. I've never given a facial in my life. But I wanted to know everything so that I could run the business correctly. You know, I'm a barista, but I hate coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I ran bars and coffee shops. So I needed to understand how to be a barista. So I truly believe in that. But I suppose when you decide that you want to go back into that, that more journalistic, I suppose, and radio and TV, how easy was it? What route did you take? Like, what were the pitfalls? Did you see everything coming?
No, is the answer to the last question. I mind my own contact. So I always credit that internet company that I worked for, and the HR manager sent us on lots of personal development courses. And that wasn't something that was talked about then, because I was in my early 20s. So now we read about it. It's coming into our phones on social media, but nobody really talked about it then. So goal setting, if you can't see it, you can't be it. You know, what do you want to do in life? And having this aerial view of my life and seeing where did I want to go, what was working for me, what wasn't. I got that template there. So that company ended up folding, and I was working as a PA to a managing director of another marketing company. And it was great until it wasn't. I had amazing experiences. There were brilliant brands there. He was also managing the manager of the Ireland football team at the time, and we were at the World Cup. So I used to manage his diary. So there was lots of exciting, cool things happening. But a lot of the time I'd be desk sitting. You know, if he went to meetings where I wasn't required, if he went to the golf course where, you know, so many deals were made and I wasn't required there, I'd literally just be sitting at a desk and I was bored. And I asked myself, what do I want to do next? And that's what came to me. So first I got the qualification. Second, I mined my contacts. So I had a friend that I'd gone to drama college with. Actually, he was working in a radio station, and I rang her and I said, do you think you can help me in any way? And she got me into the newsroom for free. So I used to go in and intern for them.
Brilliant.
And I left my job and I really said, I'm going to work in radio and TV. I'm off. And I started to work in a restaurant. So I really was all in. And I've always been very conscious in any pivots I've made or changes I've made. I look at what are my outgoings? How much money do I need to make to cover these and just about live? Because obviously, you know, it was just me back then. So I could, you know, buy a bag of nuts and raisins and call it dinner if I really wanted to. And many times I did because I couldn't be bothered. But once I could cover that, I would jump, and I felt comfortable to jump. So that's what I did. And I just knocked on doors, and I, you know, spoke to people. And I always advise people in this, you know, people talk about manifesting now, and it's in all these different ways. But when your eyes are open to something, you start to see ways and avenues and meet people, and things start to open up. And I don't really like this idea of it being magic. Like, you know, if you say, I need a new car, I quite fancy a Ford Focus. All you can see is Ford Focus everywhere you go. It's like that. So I was like, I want to get into radio and TV. And I met a guy through the girl I was living with, and he was on TV, and he'd gone from IT to children's television. So he was a guy of interest to me. So I started asking him questions when we met. And then one day, and this is where serendipity and perhaps some magic does come into it, I was leaving that radio station where I was given my time for free and doing vox pops and other things from them. And he lived quite close by, and we ended up literally just bumping into each other on the street. And I said, you know, I'm working in radio or volunteering in radio. And he said, I don't want to do children's TV anymore. In fact, I want to get into radio. Would you like to do a demo together? And that demo led us to working together as a duo. And we got a lunchtime show on a Dublin radio station, Spin 103.8. And that was the start of everything.
That's
but
amazing.
It was because I was in the right place at the right time. I was asking the right questions. I was putting myself out there, that I think it came to me with a sprinkling of luck.
I think I don't think there was that. I think, but if you, the beginning of that conversation, the first thing you did was ask somebody for help. You asked your friend that had a connection. And we're bad, I think, at asking for help. And like, I love my network. I have a lovely network of people that can come and ask me, and I link them all up and everything else. And sometimes, you have to open the floodgates and say, I need some help here too. Does anybody know anybody that could help me here? As women, I think we're quite bad at it. I've tried to get better over the years. But isn't that funny? And I truly believe in being in the right place at the right time, and things happen for a reason. But I don't know about luck, because you had grafted, because you were given your time for free, and timing was perfect, I think, without a doubt. But I think grafters always seem to have a lot of luck. But actually, you worked really hard to find that luck.
I know, and people say the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I do get that. But I mean, I could have grafted on. I could have offered my time for free there for, 3 years and still been working in the restaurant, which I really didn't enjoy.
Okay.
And it might not have happened. I might not have met him. I might not have got my break. But then when I ended up at another crossroads and then said, well, maybe that's not for me, what is? I just think we need to not only have this one Emerald City that we're trying to make it to, because look, in that story, when she gets to the Emerald City, it's not always cracked up to be either. So I just think we need to be open. And when you said, were you aware of the pitfalls? They were the things that I didn't necessarily have in mind. I was just young, wide-eyed. I had a dream. This was all going to happen. And And, you know, things don't always work out exactly as you intend them to. And I wish I'd been a little bit more open to that at times.
Yeah. It's hard to see it though, isn't it, ahead of you, especially when things are exciting and like new and shiny and exciting. So moving through to doing the radio, how long did you stay as a team, as a partnership?
7 years.
Oh, wow.
So 2 years at the weekend, learning our craft. And then we got the lunchtime talk show. And that was like a dream job because it was the day's events that people could call in, text in. It was a really young, vibrant radio station. So everyone who worked there was young. You know, we were there pretty much from when it started. I think it was only about a year in operation when we started. So everyone who was in it was really invested in it. We used to it was like soft play.
Yeah.
For adults. It was so fun and such a brilliant job. And we had a lovely, he's still one of my best friends to this day. He's my daughter's godfather. Like, we know each other in many ways better than our respective husband and wife know.
We spent an awful lot of time together.
And we shared everything, you know, we really did. But that was a youth radio station that was directed at 18 to 24-year-olds at that time. And in that time, we went past that age. Maybe we were past it when we began. I think we probably were. I think it was about 24 when I started that job. But, you know, we got married. We got mortgages. You know, I ended up having 2 babies. Yeah. And they were things that you weren't necessarily talking about on air. So I always knew it was going to have its day. And it was really hard to let go. But
whose decision was it to let go? Was it just like, we better all sit around a table because we're all getting older?
No, it was ultimately, I suppose, he started to get into science and technology because he still had that IT strand. So he was always really interested in that. And he thought science was a really interesting niche because he found through working in radio that the science interviews were always the really interesting stories to him. And, you know, there was often something really good to say. So he started working in News Talk on a science show, which he still presents to this day, called Future Proof.
Okay.
And so he was doing that. And then I was having my second baby and I was about to go on maternity leave. And he said, look, I'm thinking about setting up a media training company and just really going down this science route. I'm working a lot with scientists to help them tell their story on air. And it was really interesting because during one of our interviews, there was a guy who had designed, I can't even fully remember, but it was some kind of a clothes dryer that could fold and go under the couch. So it was really good for apartments or small living spaces. And he came on to tell it to us. And it just wasn't a great interview. And I remember Johnny saying to me, well, I just ring that guy back because I think he could tell that story better. And I said, yeah, go for it. And he had a 10-minute conversation with him. And he said, right, he's ready. And we came back. And, you know, again, I can't remember the full details, but the guy started with something like, I was sitting on the couch with my girlfriend. I looked over at the clothes horse. You know, she said, this thing is doing my head in, and she tripped over it again. And I thought something here needs to change. And he just painted a picture and he told the story differently. And Johnny then turned that into a career. Like, he learned that on the job, and that was something he wanted to get into more. Now, at that time in my life, I was covering a maternity leave on Ireland AM. I was going straight in to do the radio show with him in Spin. And I was going home to my then toddler son, and I was pregnant. So I was actually as close to burnout as I've possibly ever been in my life, and just saying yes to everything and just going. And I wasn't as reflective on my well-being as I would be now. And he was like, what do you think? I think I'm going to do this. And I was just like, yeah, do it. And plus I wanted that for him, and I knew things were going to come to an end at some point, but I was like, look, I'm just going to go have my baby and I'll think about that another time. And on that maternity leave, I was going to come back to present with another co-host who was a great guy. But I knew the time was done then. So I jumped ship then. Also, I didn't return after my maternity leave.
And how did you feel like through that maternity leave? You know, you've got a toddler and a baby. You're kind of making it look like, you know, you can have it all. That's that picture of working really hard and saying yes to everything. You know now, reflecting back, that you probably, you know, should have said maybe sooner. How were you feeling then?
Like, so low at that time. I was so exhausted at that moment, but I was just on a treadmill. Yeah. I was just going, building. So from when I had said, right, that's it, I'm, you know, getting into radio and TV, I'm working in a restaurant, I'm going, it just went. And look, some of it was fab and fun. And I was down at Oxygen Festival interviewing bands. Like, don't think I was breaking rocks at the side of the road. Like, there were loads of fabulous
times,
fun moments, and the hours were really lovely. Like, I used to work 10 till 3. Like, I'd be back home on my couch at 4 o'clock watching daytime TV. So it wasn't all stress and strain, but the opportunity came for me to cover a maternity leave at Ireland AM. And that was something I'd always had my eye on. I always wanted to work on that show, and I'd auditioned several times. And I knew I was a few weeks pregnant, but I had had a miscarriage with my previous pregnancy. Only after a few weeks, it was nothing as harrowing as some people have, but it was still a loss. And I didn't know that the next pregnancy was going to go full term.
Yes.
And you still don't tell anybody until you get to 12 weeks anyway. So as a woman, you just go for job interviews, you go for opportunities, you say yes, and you're like, figure it out later, which I did. And again, there were so many fun, amazing, brilliant times. I loved that studio. I loved those people. I loved the job. I had a fairly good pregnancy. I didn't suffer the way other people might, but it was still a lot. It was still a lot to have essentially 2 jobs, to be getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, to have a toddler at home. I didn't take time for myself in any of that. And after 8 months at the end of it, I was really drained, and there was a baby on the way. And I was like, how am I going to manage it? But if I reflect back now, I still looked at that maternity leave and time with my daughter, who, look, I relished that time. And second baby, you're a lot less freaked out. You're like, I've got this. This is lovely. And I still did lots of the lovely things, like meet friends for coffee and whatever else, and enjoy my baby. But I was like, now what else am I going to do with work? And how else am I going to use this time to get myself out there? And what other opportunities? So it was just this go, go, go mentality that I think maybe you do have until you reach midlife. Because at the midpoint, you kind of go, okay, well, am I going to keep climbing this mountain, or am I going to stop at some point and just enjoy the view? And that's where I'm at now. And you only know it looking back, but that's kind of where I was at that time.
And so that let's look at the view. I mean, I remember actually someone getting me to write down there, you had to, a long piece of paper, like a ruler, and you had to write 1 to life expectancy. I put 90. And then you had to tear the piece of paper where your age was and look at the difference in the sizes, which scared the living daylights out of me. And that's when I was just like, calm the shit down, because you can't continue like you are. Because it suddenly looked like a very short period of time. At what stage do you think, what age did you go, hang on a second now, let's look back and let's just work out where we're at?
It's hard to pinpoint when that would have been. I'd say it's in recent years. You know, things just sort of evolved. Things evolved that I got the health and wellness show eventually on News Talk, and that opened up a whole load of new and different doors to me.
And did you pitch that, Claire? Did they come to you with that?
I rang them to see did they need any cover. Because after I didn't go back to full-time employment after my maternity leave, I went freelance and I started working in Today FM. I worked behind the scenes with lots of the jobs. I was doing on-air music shifts, and that was also a learning for me that isn't for me. I'm all about talk radio and long-form conversation. So there was learning in that. I mean, it's not that I think it's below me. In fact, I think it's above me. It's a lot harder to say just enough in front of 2 songs, but not too much. You know, it's easier to have a conversation with somebody in so many ways. But there was great learning there, and I made great connections there. And I was also still doing cover on and off for Ireland AM. But they were tough times as well, because every month was different, every week was different. There were times, you know, when I was paying childminders and parking, and then the tax bill at the end of the year, I was like, how am I supposed to make this work? And I had to just keep tweaking and, you know, changing and evolving and trying to juggle it all. I had to have uncomfortable conversations with my husband about the division of labour. I had to ask for support. You know, there was so much learning in that time. So it's not surprising that at some point I was like, okay, this has to be some sort of a destination point. I don't have, who am I trying to prove something to? Now, I'll always be ambitious, and I'll always ask myself, like I learned in those personal development courses, what's working for me, what isn't, what do I want, and how am I going to get there? That's always going to be part of me. But, you know, I've built a home, I've built a family, I've built a marriage, I've built a career. Like, when is that going to be enough? And for me at the moment, it is enough. I love all of those things. So I don't want to miss them by looking to the next all the time.
Yeah. And how old are your children now?
My son is going to be 15 next month.
Oh, wow.
He's 6 foot tall, towering over me. And my daughter is 12. She'll be 13 at the end of the year. And that feels like a blink of an eye.
Yeah. No, and when people always talk about their families and everything, it always sounds like a blink of an eye. But, you know, like if I look even the last couple of years, you know, you've moved, you know, these are all stressful times. You're looking to develop that property, which is a huge stressful time. Like I'm doing at my house at the moment. I had no clue of the stress levels. I really didn't. I mean, obviously it was a much bigger project than I expected. I think I was saying to you before, I put makeup on my neck today because I'm covered in hives, and it is. I thought it was prawns, then I thought it was berries. It's just stress. It's just stress, and this will be finished in a few weeks, and the hives will go. And that's. But I think I'm looking at my life a little bit like yourself and going, you know, what is this for? Who is this for? What do I really want from it? Am I building this to be in it, or am I building this to be away from it? And I don't want to be away from it.
Yeah. And, you know, I think I was guilty of looking at success purely in my career sphere and constantly in what I do for a living rather than just who I am. And now success to me is having the ability to come and have this conversation with you. And as you said, I did feel we were kindred spirits. And I'd like to keep this connection going as much as we're going to have time with our busy lives and you living in Cork. I want to be able to do that and potter around Dundrum Town Centre before I come in here, go to a Pilates class, meet my friend for a coffee, walk the dog on the beach, but also be there for my kids, be there for my husband, be there in my house. I mean, we moved back to Howth, as I said, where we're both from, and we were hoping to build beside where my mum lives. And that was a long drawn out 4.5-year process that ended in a no. And luckily, you know, I mean, I say, as you said, no, we grafted for that time and there was a huge amount of stress and waiting and applying and money and all sorts, all our stuff in storage, all our lives in limbo almost. That we got this fabulous house that came off market, you know, that doesn't need any work, that, you know, I've just been living in since December. The garden is gorgeous. The dream of having flowering trees has come to fruition. I have not one but two in my garden.
Oh, wow.
And I got to hang my disco ball, which has been my dream, and look at those trees. And sometimes that's success to me alongside, you know, the career that I've built.
Yeah.
So that's what's become important to me, because I hate that idea of looking at your timeline. Jerry Hussey talks about 300 months in your whole life. So if you're at halfway, you know, how many months? I'm just like, that actually makes me want to do more rather than slow down. That makes me scared. I'm like, well, I've lots of stuff to do. Yeah. So I try not to think about that and just be in the moment a little bit more. But yeah, I worked a lot from the age of 18, and I still work hard, but I take breaks, I check in, I prioritise myself, and I prioritise other sides than just career.
And I mean, I'm quite good at that now. People always say, God, you're mentally also busy, but like I would go away a lot. Like a break for me is to get either, you know, it might be 3 days in a hotel in Ireland, but most of the time I just need to get a flight somewhere. And when I'm off, I am off. And people don't trust that. You know, I always laugh on the first day of a holiday. My out of office is on, and it's always the busiest day on email. And for some reason, people always reply to an out of office, which I find bizarre.
The always on culture is mind blowing. You know, I try to keep my phone out of my room, but I do bring it in the morning to do a guided breath work or a meditation. And I can't help but be pulled in to my WhatsApps, to, you know, Instagram. And that's with the best will in the world. And I know there are other people who have emails and jobs that think, well, just get ahead of this before you've even like throwing you. Exactly. And, you know, and it's creeping into all different areas of our lives. And even as a mum, the times where I lost it with the kids, and now look, obviously there was more times outside of this, I'm sure, but often they were when I was trying to do too many things. I was trying to cook dinner, answer emails. One of them kept calling me and I was like, what is it? And then you'd look around and like they'd be holding you a daisy from the back garden and you're like, what am I doing?
For mommy.
You know, just be at home when you're home, be at work when you're at work. And we don't really have that so much anymore. But when people say to me, God, Claire, you're so busy, I don't really take that as a compliment. It nearly offends me a little bit. And it's because of social media. Like I don't really put up sitting slobbing on the couch in my PJs. Or a lot of my personal life. I'm not huge on social media.
Yes.
I do just enough to get by because I didn't grow up with it. So it's not a muscle I flex that often. I know it could be a learned language. But yeah, I'm not as busy as people necessarily think all of the time.
I saw a great little quote from Liz Earle, actually, the skincare Liz Earle, and she said, sunlight before blue light. So she was talking about, and I do it, I wake up and I reach across and I quickly check the email and before I get up, and I was like, right, I'm doing it now because I'm obsessed with outside. So I took the phone out, it was just the beginning of this week, I saw that quote and I was like, I'll go downstairs, turn the kettle on and sit in the garden for 10 minutes, sunlight, then blue light. And I thought, that's a nice new one for me.
But it's such a soother. The smartphone, I realised, is a soother to me. Like I must have had a bit of aggro with one of the kids because they're at the age now where they challenge me, which, is their right to do so at this time.
Yeah.
And if something challenging has happened, I find myself picking up my phone, opening Instagram and scrolling to regulate myself. But it's not really regulating because it's taking in more information. Before you know it, you're comparing yourself to someone who's living their best life in Dubai or got a gig that you didn't get or, is looking X, Y, and Z in certain clothes or whatever it is. So, it's a comparison tool. So even though it soothes on one hand, it's same as putting the soother in the baby's mouth. Yes, in the short term, it's fine, but then use it too much and it starts to impact on dental health, on speech.
100%.
So it's the exact same, I feel, to our central nervous systems. And yet I too am like a moth to a flame at times.
I know, I'm dreadful. I'm trying to get better. But what gave you the idea, let's talk about the book, like what gave you the idea to bring out the book?
So I really went on a personal journey from starting to present the health and wellness show to realising possibly I'm not as healthy as I think I am. I thought I was always into health and wellness, but really I was into personal development, as I mentioned, and on a diet. And I used to follow as many fads and trends as I possibly could. And with the introduction of social media and the internet, they just became far too many for me to follow. I used to follow diet and exercise and go for that hell for leather. Now, one week I was paleo, next week I was vegan, next week I was like, no, we're carnivores. Sure, we're the exact same as, cavemen. And I was listening to whatever was being fed to me. And I was consistent with none of them. So I went on a journey to really explore what is health and wellness. Because I didn't even feel 7 years ago when I started presenting the show that I knew what the definition of wellness was. And here I was using this word all the time. So I worked with a team of experts that I had met through the show. I wrote about it in one of the papers and I started getting asked to speak about it a lot because at the end of that journey, for want of a better word, or project or challenge that I went on, I'd done a real 180 in how I felt because I used to focus on how I looked and now I was focusing on how I felt. And I let go of trends, rules. I realised it's individual and different to everybody. It has to be small and consistent to really make any impact, and it has to come from a place of kindness and self-compassion, because if you're beating yourself over the back for not being enough, you can never be truly well. So that was a message I really wanted to share with people. And that's why I got the qualification in lifestyle medicine. I got asked to do a TEDx talk in Tralee. The publishers saw that and they asked me would I be interested in pitching a book to them. So it's called Would You Be Well? I wanted it to be kind of quirky, funny. It's got a big smile across the front of it. I wanted people to smile before they even picked it up because, Would You Be Well is also kind of a double entendre because it's almost like, would you be well, eye roll with all of this wellness stuff? Because everyone's like, are you in the ice bath? Are you meditating? Are you saging? Are you, slapping yourself down with birch leaves? And we're like, I'm barely hanging on. What are you talking about? And I really kept saying, what do I want from this book? And I wanted people's shoulders to come down. I wanted them to read it, dip in and out of it, put it down on their bedside and go, okay, maybe I can do wellness. And that's really why I wrote it.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I think on the back of the book it says, this isn't about waking up at 5 a.m. and doing this and doing that. And I think that's because we do want normality. Look, I've been in the wellness industry since 97 and it looks different to me than it looks to other people. And I know we've spoken on your show before, I am a larger Pilates instructor. I always have been. I've always been a larger dancer. I was always a larger, always the largest person but always have felt well. Always have felt well. And I'm always saying to people, like, look in the whites of people's eyes if you want to see if they're well or not. Because that's, because it all comes from how they feel or what they're eating and the environment that they're in, and to create those environments for people and give them a book that makes them feel normal and think, like I always say, I'm woo, but I'm not woo-woo. We're halfway there, aren't we?
Yeah, I think the conversation has begun to change. I read a really interesting article from one of the Sunday papers about weight loss injections and how they're a very positive thing for so many people and a really positive thing for how we view. They had Donal O'Shea talking about it, and he said, we need to look at this as a treatment for obesity and the self-compassion in that, but then it's being hijacked by Hollywood and thinness is now being put on a pedestal again. So it's nuanced and it's complex. But I want to be an advocate for anyone who's in a body to focus on what you just said, feeling well and feeling well in themselves. You don't have to look a certain way to be healthy. And I do lean towards women because I am a woman and I know there are so many women that beat themselves up and are told they need to be smaller. And I just don't think anybody should be told that they need to be smaller. No. And it comes from the patriarchy. To keep women small means our voices are small, means our thoughts are caught up in how we look. And often, and I did it to myself, we're on diets where we're not eating enough. We're not fueling ourselves correctly. We're tired all the time. Obviously brain fog and tiredness can come from a whole range of issues. But if you're not eating properly, you're not even giving yourself a fighting chance. So I really wanted to speak to women about that because that was one of the best things I ever did was throw away food rules. And I really try and push for a better world for my daughter and my son too.
Yeah, I have a lot of nieces and I'm exactly the same. If the conversation about diet and food comes in to those conversations, I always just change the conversation. I don't want them to have to even think about it. I thought about it from a very young age for far too long. And I'm very honest, I'm jabbing at the moment, but I'm jabbing to feel well. But I'm also on a journey with a gut specialist and everything else because I'm trying to find out why I hold weight because I've never understood it. Every day we turn a page and find out something new.
And it depends on your starting point. Yeah. So you have a lot of self-confidence, a lot of self-belief, the way you speak. That's why it spoke to me so much at the table when, we were together and everything you just said. So you're like, well, I'm going to try these, but you're not trying it to become whole. You are whole and it could be an add-on.
And it is about feeling because I, going through menopause, I'd put on like 0.5 pound every month for like 4 years. And I was dieting stringently and I was ketoing and I was everything in. But I felt like a big, huge balloon. I felt uncomfortable when I was moving and I love movement. And actually through the gut specialist, I found out that my body creates histamine. So I am like a big balloon. So I have to bring that histamine down. Like a normal person's histamine would be 0 to 600. Mine was 7,349. Can you believe it?
Wow.
I know. So I was just like a big balloon. So even in the few weeks that I've been on the journey, I suppose, and for me, it's about feeling. I want to feel healthy and energetic.
Yeah.
Because I have for the most of my life. The menopause changed that for me a bit. And now I'm on a journey of discovery of how to get that back.
Yeah. And I support anyone in whatever their endeavour is to be feeling their best self. And I think that's really important. I also don't demonise weight loss. I know weight loss can come as a result of healthy behaviours. But when weight loss is the sole focus, it can come with unhealthy behaviours. And that's what I speak out against and have people want to be focused on feeling well, feeling good, nourishing themselves, mind, body and soul, and reaching out for joy.
Yeah.
I mean, there can be so much joy in food, in movement, in our bodies. And if we're spending our time beating ourselves up and constantly looking in the mirror, I don't allow my daughter to look in the mirror and go, ugh, ever about her frizzy hair or this bit of skin poking out. I say to her, don't speak bad about your body. That's not okay. And she eye rolls, but I know it's going in there. And that's who I want to speak to.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And there's lots of people that need that information. And actually, when I started the jab, I was worried that I was going to let people down. They think that the body confidence that I had was not true, but it is true. This is a feeling that I have. And I'm always and have always been at my most comfortable at a size 18. I'm 5'7". I look good, and actually I did a piece. There's a lovely Kathy O'Connor that's been on the pod as well. She has a thing called Woman and Branded at the moment. And they asked me to do a piece the other day about, do I have a piece of clothing that's my favourite, whatever. And I don't really. I have a necklace I wear that I really love, but I love my smile. And my smile changes other people's days. And when they smile back at me, it changes my day. So it's a rolling effect. And I think we just need to do all of that a lot more.
Yeah. 100%,
follow the joy.
100%. And two things can exist side by side and things can change and things can evolve. And you can try something and you might say a year from now, do you know what, that's not for me. You don't have to stay rigid. And, I think we should be open to be flexible. And just once there's self-compassion and, love for yourself at the centre of it, sure we can do anything.
Absolutely. What's next for you?
More of the same, I suppose. I am always interested in moving, changing, learning, evolving. I'm leaning into this sharing of this message a lot more. I've also trained as a breathwork teacher. And I think in this stressful world, that's really important. And it's a lovely gift to be able to give people, because not only can I lead somebody in half an hour to an hour session, but I can also teach people the 3 deep breaths while the kettle is boiling or before you throw your legs out of bed in the morning at intervals during the day can make a huge difference. So I'm really enjoying that side of it. And I'm trying to just be open this time at this stage and chapter to let things open, let them grow, see where they're at, try and soak up these babies before they waltz their 6-foot bodies out the door. Just be in my life, just be in what I've built, because I'm proud of it and I do really love it. So I just want to enjoy it.
And I love it too. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Thank you, Sian.
So thanks for listening. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this pod, then please like and follow and pop over to YouTube if you want to watch. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Sian Horn. And lastly, we have some amazing news. All of the BeBell events are now on bbell.ie. So if you want to know more about our monthly events, our meetups, and our amazing, amazing retreat coming this September in Portugal, then do head over to the website and we'll see you there.